What occurs when Rowan Atkinson, the notoriously quiet comedian in his silent wit guise as Mr. Bean, enters The View, a show that prides itself on big voices and sharper knives to discuss technology and growing old? It started out as a quiet, near-academic conversation about whether older adults would be taught computer skills for free. But it took only minutes for the mode to change. Joy Behar, equipped with her typical sarcasm, asked if taxpayers should pay for individuals who refused to catch up. Rowan, steady but obviously tense, replied that technology was never designed for previous generations to use, and assisting them was a responsibility, not an act of kindness. What ensued was one of the most bizarre and unexpected conflicts in The View's history. The man who entertained millions without saying a word suddenly found his voice and used it to denounce what he perceived as arrogance and generational naivety. As the debate intensified, the audience leaned in, feeling that something unusual was happening. And when finally Rowan stood up, smoothed his jacket, and silently walked off the set, the silence that ensued was louder than any punchline he ever made. Millions would be arguing it online soon. Had the perspective crossed the line, or was Rowan simply at his breaking point? The piece began innocently enough. Whoopi Goldberg led the show off with her usual warmth, setting up the subject. Today we are discussing technology, aging, and whether or not seniors are entitled to free digital education. Should the government pay for it, or should individuals simply muddle through it themselves? The audience politely applauded. The cameras scanned the table, and Rowan Atkinson grinned his subtle, nearly awkward grin. He was not there to make us laugh. He was there to make a point. Whoopi started with him. Rowan, you've discussed previously about the generation gap. Why is this matter of concern to you? Rowan folded his hands, his voice steady but firm. Because I've seen smart minds, teachers, war veterans, community leaders brought down to frustration by something as silly as logging into an account. The world changed more quickly than they did, and instead of assisting them in catching up, we ridiculed them for it. I believe that's deeply unjust. The audience nodded, a low rumble of agreement passing through the studio. Joy Behar leaned forward, smirking. But Rowan, isn't that just the way it is? Every generation has to adjust. No one taught us how to use microwaves or fax machines for free. Why should this be any different? Rowan's eyebrows went up slightly, because the digital world isn't a convenience anymore. It's survival. You can't access healthcare, pay your bills, or even chat with your grandkids without knowing it. It's not about convenience. It's about connection. That line hit home. The audience clapped once more, but Joy wasn't finished. So you're saying the government should just pay for everyone's computer classes, gratis lessons for grandma to learn Instagram? Rowan cocked his head, his face deadpan, but biting. If it keeps her in touch with her family and won't feel left behind, yes, I'd say that cash well spent, wouldn't you? The audience laughed, some from humor, others at surprise. Whoopi tried to keep things evened up, asking Anna Navarro to chime in. Anna concurred with Rowan, stating her own mother had difficulty with online appointments in digital forms. Rowan nodded graciously. Precisely. It's not about being trendy. It's about bestowing dignity on those who constructed the world we now navigate through screens. Joy interrupted, shaking her head. I understand, but Rowan, where does it end? Everyone wants something for nothing. What about personal responsibility? Shouldn't people get started instead of waiting for someone to hold their hand? The tension began to rise. Rowan hesitated, then responded softly. You're taking for granted they've been provided with the same opportunities. My mother had used a typewriter for 40 years. When computers arrived, there was no one to assist her in transition. She didn't fail to adjust. Society failed to instruct. The studio fell silent for an instant. It wasn't a line. It came from a sincere place.
Joy emitted a soft laugh to ease the tension. Come on, Rowan. Mom could have attended a library. They offer classes. People simply don't make an effort anymore. This time, Rowan didn't smile. His tone sharpened a bit. It's not hard to say that when you're not the one stuck trying to figure out something that's taken over every aspect of your life. Whoopi leaned forward, feeling the tension build. So then, what's the answer, Rowan? He released a breath, calm but firm. We spend billions on technology, but pennies on educating people how to use it. If we can create systems intelligent enough to think, we can definitely make space for empathy. The audience applauded again. This time, Joy fidgeted in her seat, looking toward the audience. Well, I don't know about you, but I'd sooner see that money go to health care or schools for children. Old people had their time. Rowan stared right at her, eyes narrowed just slightly. And without them, Joy, none of us would have our time. That line fell like a soft thunderclap. Whoopi moved in to break the silence. Okay, we'll come back after the break and listen more from both sides. As the cameras went into commercial, Rowan slumped back in his chair, face unreadable. He wasn't angry yet, but something in the exchange had changed. The debate, which started as courteous disagreement, was now smoldering just beneath the surface. By the next segment, that spark was going to catch fire. When the cameras returned from commercial, the tone on set had altered. The smiles were tighter, the laughter forced. The View's producers obviously feel the tension too. They cut to Happiness immediately, giving her the first line. So we're back, and we're discussing whether seniors should have free digital training. Rowan Atkinson believes it's a moral obligation. I believe it's a handout. Let's get going. The crowd laughed, but the undercurrent was tense. Rowan moved slightly, crossing his hands. It's not about handouts, Joy. It's about respect. We've built a society that relies on technology, and then we penalize people for not getting it. That's not progress. It's efficiency masquerading as cruelty. Joy leaned in, her voice cutting. Cruelty? Seriously? No one's punishing anyone. They can go on YouTube, watch tutorials like everybody else. Rowan raised an eyebrow. You think everybody has access or knows where to look for that assistance?
That's exactly the issue. Anna Navarro intervened and tried to mediate. Joy, come on. My mom still doesn't know how to use her iPad. She's afraid of hitting the wrong button. There's genuine fear there. Joy replied back. Then perhaps your mom needs to stop being scared of the iPad and just learn. Fear is not an excuse to remain in the Stone Age. The audience responded, a blend of laughs and gasps. Whoopi smiled weakly. He's got you there, Joy. Joy shrugged nonchalantly, as if not giving a damn. Fine, but you cannot anticipate the government babysitting everyone who is behind the times. What's next? Free TikTok lessons? Rowan hesitated for a second, glancing downward before looking at her again. Nor, Joy. I demand compassion. It's not about TikTok. It's about ensuring people remain connected to their world before it forgets them completely. The room fell silent. Then Sunny Host interjected. Rowan's right. Many seniors are disconnected. They can't utilize apps for food delivery, video calls, even telemedicine. It's not only about fun, it's survival. Joy let out a deep breath. I get that, but we can't hold everyone's hand forever. My mom learned her TV remote. Didn't require a government program to accomplish that. Rowan leaned his head to one side, his voice now deeper. That's respectable, but it isn't the same, is it? A remote doesn't require your personal information, manipulate you into subscriptions, or lock you out with passwords you can't recall. Technology today penalizes confusion. The crowd nodded in accord. Rowan went on, his voice deepening. You can't give people to just learn when the world shifts every 6 months. New updates, new interfaces, new rules. If it were easy, Joy, half this room wouldn't have teenagers assisting them with logging in. Even Whoopi smiled a weak smile at that. He's not incorrect there. Joy folded her arms. All right, but who's funding it, Rowan? Me? You? The taxpayers? Where does the money come from to have Grandma learn FaceTime? Rowan fixed her with a steady look. From the same source we finance libraries, healthcare, and infrastructure. Because connection is infrastructure. It's part of being a civilized society. A ripple of applause erupted, louder this time. Joy's face set more firmly. You sound as though you'd make compassion policy. Rowan didn't blink. Maybe compassion should be policy. That statement fell like a soft thunderclap. Joy attempted to laugh her way out of it.
All right, St. Rowan, savior of the elderly. What's next? Free smartphones for all over 60? Rowan leaned back, his tone now clipped. If it keeps them from getting scammed, ignored, or left behind? Yes, absolutely. That took even the panel by surprise. The audience cheered and clapped wildly. Joy looked clearly agitated now. Oh, come on, that's unrealistic, and you know it.
Whoopi, noticing the rising tension, attempted to steer the conversation along. Okay, let's stay on topic. Rowan, you said technology isolates seniors. Joy, you're saying it empowers them. Is there a middle ground? Rowan answered first. There could be, if humans would stop treating empathy as an optional feature. Joy smiled with a thin line. And perhaps if humans would stop answering to the expectation that the world owes it to them to slow down. The words seemed to cling to the air like static. Rowan leaned back, his eyes flicking briefly to the table. When he answered again, his voice was low, but the weight it carried was undeniable. The world didn't slow down, Joy. It just forgot to take everyone along. That line caused gasps. Joy did not reply immediately. Whoopi gave a nervous smile to the camera. All right, everyone, I think we're getting fired up here. When we return, we'll discuss the role of family. Should young growing generations be taking a larger role instead of the government? Tune in. As the red light faded and commercial music came in, Rowan's eyes remained locked in Joy. He wasn't upset, merely deeply disappointed. And everyone on set could sense it. What had begun as a discussion of funding had grown into something much deeper, a question of who we've become as a society. The next piece would take it even deeper. When they returned, the feelings wouldn't just intensify, they'd be blazing. When the cameras returned, there was a palpable shift in energy. The audience had sensed the widening gulf, and now we were all leaning forward, wondering where it would lead. Whoopi Goldberg, ever the level head, breathed deeply and smiled at the camera. Welcome back. We've discussed whether seniors should be taught digital skills on the house. Rowan Atkinson tells us it's an issue of compassion. Joy Behar tells us it's an issue of personal responsibility. So where do we go from here? Rowan seemed placid enough, but there was something quietly bubbling underneath his unruffled demeanor. He clasped his hands together, carefully choosing his words. We go, he said quietly, toward a world that remembers the individuals who constructed it, the individuals who authored the letters, repaired the cars, raised the children, and now discover themselves locked out by screens to which they did not ask to be allegorized. The audience erupted in applause. It was not thunderous, but it was sincere. Joy smirked, leaning forward. That's poetic, Rowan, but let us not sentimentalize the past. The world progresses. My grandmother didn't possess a smartphone, and she coped just fine. Rowan spoke to her. Yes, because she inhabited a world that still communicated with her. Nowadays, everything from medicine to banking requires digital literacy. We've turned survival into a subscription model. A few people in the audience applauded. Some grumbled. Sunny Hostin nodded. That's really a good point. My father was locked out of his medical portal last week and couldn't renew his prescription because he forgot his password. It's not laziness, it's design. Joy rolled her eyes. Okay, so where does it stop? Free digital lessons today? What tomorrow? Free chauffeurs because someone's too old to drive? Rowan's face softened, not angry, but sad. Joy, it's not about entitlement. It's about empathy. We already have ramps for people who can't walk upstairs. Why can't we have bridges for those who can't cross into the digital world? The studio fell silent again. Whoopi smiled weakly. That's a good line, Rowan. Bridges, not barriers. Joy sighed out loud. You make it sound like we're villains for expecting people to adjust. But perhaps, and I mean this with all respect, perhaps older people don't wish to adjust. Perhaps they simply wish the world to remain comfortable for them. That hit a chord. Rowan's lips parted slightly, his eyes on hers. He took a slow breath before he spoke. Comfortable, Joy. You think it's comfortable to be left behind? To have your children text you rather than visit? To be informed your handwriting is outdated, your voice being replaced by an algorithm, your life summarized as a login? His tone wasn't raised, but it was significant. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy. Joy blurred uncharacteristically quiet for a second. "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" Rowan smiled sorrowfully. "I earn my living on drama, Joy. But this isn't drama, this is occurring." The crowd applauded, some standing. Anna Navarro leapt in, attempting to stabilize the moment. "I believe what Rowan's stating, and inform me if I'm incorrect, is that when you remove the emotional component, what we're actually arguing is dignity." Rowan nodded. "Precisely. Technology is meant to be used to benefit people, not humiliate them. And yet we've created a society where individuals in their 70s need to ask their grandkids to be able to exist online." The crowd murmured in agreement again. Joy, sensing the energy escaping, stood up and went on the attack. "But don't you think that's a trifle patronizing, Rowan? Seniors aren't incapable. My neighbor is 82 and manages an online book club. Perhaps instead of portraying them as victims, we give them some credit." Rowan's expression softened, not angry, but sad. "Of course they're capable, Joy, but capability does not eliminate responsibility."
We can't use a few success stories to excuse ignoring millions who are suffering. He paused, then leaned in just a bit. "You know, I used to assist my own mother video call her doctor. It took us close to 40 minutes to set the app up because each screen requested a new password, a code, a permission. And when we actually managed to connect, she cried. Not because she was unable to learn, but because the world no longer met her halfway." The room fell silent again. Even Joy hesitated. Whoopi's voice dropped. "That's mighty, Rowan." Rowan nodded. "It broke my heart. Not because she couldn't learn, but because the world stopped meeting her halfway." Joy cleared her throat. "That's touching, but one emotional story doesn't mean we overhaul the whole system." Rowan gave her a long glance, then spoke softly. "You're right, it doesn't. But if compassion only matters when it's profitable, then perhaps we should overhaul more than the system." The audience erupted in applause once more. Joy tried to speak over it, but the cheers drowned her out. Whoopi smiled to the crowd. All right, let's take a breath. Rowan, you've presented your case for compassion. Joy, yours for practicality. But I think what everyone's feeling right now is perhaps it's not either or." Joy looked doubtful. "I'm all for compassion, Whoopi, but if we keep cushioning everyone, no one learns resilience." Rowan turned to her with a low intensity. "Resilience doesn't mean neglect. You don't toughen people by turning your back on them." The crowd applauded again, and Joy threw up her hands. "Oh, please, now I'm the villain again." Rowan smiled weakly. "Not a villain, Joy. Just a reminder that impassion isn't weakness, it's wisdom." That line hung there like the ring of a bell. Even Joy couldn't make a comeback. She just gazed at him, blinking slowly. The audience was in his corner now, clapping loudly, a few people even yelling, "That's right!" The tension didn't dissipate when the cameras cut for a commercial break. Rather, it intensified. Rowan remained quiet, looking down at his cup of tea. Joy grumbled something under her breath that didn't make it to the mics. The stage crew crept quietly, feeling something was coming apart. Not just a discussion, but a moment of principle. When they returned, the atmosphere would change again. The debate had escalated from polite to pointed, from reasoned to raw. And within the next few minutes, it would cross its breaking point, the one where words wouldn't be enough. The studio was quiet. Even the typical chatter from the production crew had subsided. The audience, who'd been laughing mere minutes before, now watched as tension emanated through the view stage. Joy Behar leaned forward, smile long gone. "So, let me get this straight," she said slowly, her tone sharp. "You think seniors deserve free lessons funded by taxpayers to use the internet and phones? What's next, Rowan? Free smartphones? Free Netflix too?" Rowan Atkinson's expression barely shifted. He didn't raise his voice, didn't fidget. That stillness was somehow louder than shouting. "Joy," he said calmly, "I'm not asking for free entertainment. I'm asking for dignity. There's a difference." That line struck deep. You could hear someone in the audience whisper, "He's right." Joy scoffed. "Dignity isn't a government handout. My mother taught herself how to use her phone at 82. You can't coddle people just because they're older. Rowan's eyes flashed towards her, and for the first time, a hint of annoyance broke through his calm. Your mother was lucky, Joy. Not everyone has that assistance or tolerance. Some seniors don't have anyone. They're not seeking pity. They're seeking participation. Sonini host intervened, feeling the heat rise. Rowan, what about accountability? Doesn't everyone try to figure it out for themselves? There are libraries, tutorials. He interrupted her smoothly but firmly. You're assuming they have any idea where to start. Many don't. You give them a tablet and it's like a spaceship, and whenever they attempt to learn, they're told, "Oh, you wouldn't understand." That is not encouragement. That's exclusion masquerading as progress. The crowd growled again, more loudly this time. Joy folded her arms. You're playing like technology is the bad guy here. It's evolution. People evolve or fall behind. It's always been that way. Rowan breathed slowly. Evolution doesn't equate to abandonment. It means lifting one another up. We didn't leave individuals in the dust when we created cars. We showed them how to drive. That line received a wave of applause. But Joy didn't let up. She leaned in, eyes narrowing. You're a comedian, Rowan. You bring people together. Maybe stick to that, rather than lecturing America on technology policy. A quick gasp swept through the audience. Rowan blinked, clearly shocked. His lips compressed together, and he glanced down for a moment before looking back into her eyes. You know, Joy, he whispered, it's ironic. You have a show about opinions, yet you appeared to believe mine don't matter if I'm not in your lane. The air was charged with tension. Even Whoopi Goldberg, normally the peacemaker, seemed uncomfortable. All right, she ventured, attempting to diffuse things down. Let's all take a breath. But Rowan wasn't done. He spent years watching people, how we talk to each other, and how we get each other wrong. And what I'm seeing now is a world too hasty to cast out anyone who doesn't speak its current language fluently. Joy smirked. Or perhaps it's a world weary of excuses. That did it. Rowan's facade broke. He leaned in, voice low but rich. Excuses. Try being 75 and having to book a doctor's appointment online because the phone line was cut. Try being invisible because society deemed your struggle isn't cool enough. The applause erupted, passionate, loud, unfiltered. Joy's face compressed. You're distorting this into a soap tale, Rowan. He shook his head. No, Joy, I'm telling reality. And if empathy sounds like a soap tale to you, perhaps that's the actual problem. The room fell utterly silent. For a heartbeat, no one said a word. Then Georgie offered an odd smile and said, All right, Mr. Bean, we've heard your sermon. The crowd groaned. Some booed softly. Rowan stood slowly, smoothing his jacket. Thank you for proving my point, he said quietly. Mocking the message because you don't like the messenger. He turned to the audience and gave a small, courteous nod. That's all I needed to say. And then, without looking back, Rowan Atkinson walked off the set. The cameras didn't cut. The audience sat in stunned silence. Whoopi called for a commercial, but even she looked shaken. It wasn't just a walk-off. It was a statement. A man known for silence just said everything that needed to be heard. The studio lights dimmed slightly as the view cut to a commercial break, but no one moved. The audience sat frozen, whispering among themselves. Joy Behar stared at her notes, pretending to read, but her face betrayed the tension. You could almost hear the echo of Rowan Atkinson's quiet words, mocking the message because you don't like the messenger. When the show came back from break, Whoopi Goldberg took a steadying breath and gazed directly into the camera. All right, for those just joining us, Rowan Atkinson has departed the stage after what became a heated debate about seniors and technology. Her voice mellowed. Let's take a moment to unpack that. Joy tried to laugh it off. He was getting a little dramatic, don't you think? She said, looking over at the audience for reassurance, but there wasn't much laughing this time. Some people crossed their arms. Others just shook their heads. Sonini host, still looking visibly perturbed, leaned forward. I don't believe it was drama, Joy. I believe he was attempting something we don't want to admit. That technology seems like a locked door to many seniors, and when we laugh about it, we make them feel small. That observation struck hard. Joy gave a half shrug but did not react. Meanwhile, social media was ablaze. Montages of Rowan walking away were being repeated, captioned, "Rowan Atkinson's silent protest on The View." Comments burst in. He did not lose his cool. He stated his point and departed. Respect. Someone finally standing up for older people who were left behind. Joy was way out of line. This had nothing to do with politics. It was about humanity. As the conversation continued, Whoopi attempted to get things back to reflection. You know, I've got older relatives who struggle with all this, new stuff, apps, passwords, digital banking. It's not as simple as people think, and not everyone has someone patient enough to help them. Joy finally sighed. Look, I didn't mean to sound heartless, she admitted, but it's just every time there's a problem, people expect someone else to fix it. Maybe I got too defensive. The audience murmured again, this time not in anger, but understanding. Sonini nodded gently. That's reasonable, but what
Rowan was saying wasn't about blame. It was about access. Offering digital skills for free isn't charity. It's giving people the tools to stay connected. Seniors shouldn't have to decide between isolation and confusion. For the remainder of the segment, Joy remained silent. When the show ended, she provided a brief closing statement, softer than normal. If Rowan's watching, I hope he knows I didn't mean to disrespect him. He made some solid points. Perhaps I needed to hear them. But the actual effect wasn't in the studio. It was outside. That afternoon, clips from the exchange made the rounds across platforms. News picked it up. Headlines read, "Rowan Atkinson walks out of the frame after impassioned plea for seniors. Comedian turns advocate. Atkinson's viral moment on digital inclusion." Advocacy groups started quoting his words within hours. A nonprofit supporting older digital education tweeted, "When Rowan stated evolution doesn't mean abandonment, he encapsulated our work better than we ever could." Even late-night talk shows commented. Some joked, sure, but most complimented him for using his stage to bring attention to something underappreciated. By morning, a quiet ripple had begun. A handful of tech firms publicly offered free introductory workshops for seniors. Local libraries had sign-ups for computer literacy classes skyrocket. A couple of city councils even spoke about expanding senior learning programs. And somewhere, in a small coffee shop in London, Rowan Atkinson was reportedly sitting on a cup of tea, reading the headlines on his phone. He smiled weakly, then put it aside. When a reporter later asked if he regretted strolling off, he merely said no. Sometimes, silence is the loudest reply. A week later, back on The View, Joy spoke of him again. You know, Rowan's moment made people sit up and take notice. I still believe we need balance, but perhaps he was correct about something. Evolution never should mean abandonment. That line got applause. Not deafening, but sincere. And to millions who'd seen that viral video, individuals who'd been too old, too lost, or too humiliated to seek aid, it meant something more. Rowan Atkinson hadn't stormed off in rage. He'd left in principle, and his silent departure did what no sermon could. It reminded everyone that kindness isn't dated, it's ageless. If you enjoyed this gripping moment, be sure to subscribe for more celebrity confrontations, emotional battles, and unforgettable TV moments. Drop a comment below. Do you think seniors deserve free digital education?